Sher Khan was the most ferocious hunter in all the jungles in the country. In the entire jungle ecosystem, he feared no one except Mrs. Sher Khan. And Mrs. Sher Khan that day looked at him and snarled and said, "Make sure you come back with a big fat deer. My mom's coming home, remember?" And Sher Khan, bravely smiling at her, walked out of the cave, knowing fully well that he would come back with a big stag for dinner. He checked his GPS, tracked a herd of deer, very quietly slunk to very close to them, hid in the grass next to them in the direction opposite to the wind so that they may not smell him, and when they came close, emitting a huge roar, he raced at them. As he raced at them, the stag and the entire herd raced ahead. He raced behind them, they went ahead. One of the stags slowed down. He checked his GPS, managed the distances, jumped at the stag's neck, and fell flat down on the floor. Apparently, at the last moment, his internet connectivity had gone away and his GPS did not judge the distance correctly. Francisco Belgario had promised his girlfriend that the winning goal in the football championship that day would be scored by him. She waited in the stands, expectantly looking at him. When the ball was passed to him, he dribbled past the last three defenders, he dodged the goalkeeper, went into the net, shot that ball, and it bounced off the pole. Just as Sher Khan that day had to sleep in the drawing room and had to order out from KFC and McDonald's, Belgario also. Well, I won't go into what he did not get that night. But what's in common between Sher Khan and this football player? Both of them did not get what they started off wanting to get. They were therefore not effective because they had messed up the last step. This is exactly like the salesman who convinces very well but is unable to close the deal, or the partygoer who tells a good joke, builds up the suspense but messes up the punchline, or like the speaker who starts well, explains the points of his deliberation very carefully, and towards the end loses his entire audience and becomes absolutely ineffective because he is unable to do what he set out to do. This is because endings are not given as much importance as beginnings. We all do remember that the first 20 seconds in a speech or in any verbal communication are important because the audience or the people listening to you tend to judge you in that time. But we tend to forget that the end is equally important, because though the beginning catches hold of the attention of the listeners, the middle convinces them. It is the ending that they actually take home. And therefore the ending deserves as much attention as the beginning. At least as much, or slightly lesser, but certainly not to be a neglected item at all. Now, why is it that speakers get lost in the end? Primarily because they concentrate mainly on the matter. After that, they think of a catchy beginning, but they do not give enough attention to thinking of the ending. And therefore, what they tend to end up doing is saying, "So, having said all that, I shall now summarize what I have said before." And the audience says, "Yeah, come on, we are intelligent enough. You told us once in great detail, we agreed with you. Why do you need to summarize the same thing? Are we fools?" And they knock off. Or he begins to say, "In summation, I have to conclude that." The audience switches off because the audience realizes that he has not given a thought to how he wants to end whatever he was trying to say. So what kind of ending is appropriate? An ending which surprises the audience. It's like saying Sachin Tendulkar or any other sportsman. Normally they would say, he must retire when people ask, why is he retiring? Rather than retire when people say, oh, why doesn't he retire? It's the same for speeches. When you are speaking, when you are in a flow, when you have the audience in your palms, that is the time when you must suddenly give them the end. And the end can be either a quotation, a brief statement of 2 or 3 lines, or a connection to the beginning. This is the proper way to end a speech. So folks, Just as you must be as confident as Sher Khan was when he started out from his cave, you must ensure that the end is equally effective. Otherwise, remember, listeners are going to ask you to sleep in the drawing room once more. That's it for the day. Keep coming back, joining us on Pack Up on Saturday when we give you tips on how to speak more effectively. And meanwhile, remember,
join the Free to Jail family.